Radio.
Well, good morning. You have Psychic Brenda Bradshaw. Today's show is a very serious show about our soul contracts. A lot of information coming at you. Yesterday's show on Wednesday, I discussed my own soul contracts because you have to experience something to understand it. My journey has taken me many different ways with soul contracts. Let's look at it today, and thank you for coming in for the show on soul contracts.
Don't say words you're gonna regret. Don't let fire rush to your head. I've heard the accusation before, and now you gotta think anymore. Believe me, the sun in your eyes is some of the lies worth believing. I am the eye in the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can see you blind, and I don't need to see anymore to know that I can read your mind. 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 Don't leave false illusions behind. Don't cry, I ain't changing my mind. So find another fool like before, 'cause I ain't gotta live anymore. Believing some of the lies, while all of the signs are deceiving. I am the eye in the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools.
Hello, this is Brenda Bradshaw, and I can read your soul mind. Let's do a card reading. 347-838-8452. Give me a call. Thank you so much for joining the show.
I can read your mind.
So I have to talk about the mind here for just a second. When we use the word mind, we're talking about the consciousness. We're talking about the higher consciousness, the super consciousness, the thing that we are. We basically choose, free will to choose, to elevate ourselves, to develop ourselves. The fool, of course, we do, well, what kind of fool am I? The fool is the journey. And why is it a journey called fool? Because actually we feel very foolish sometimes. We're doing things sometimes in a spur of the moment, spontaneously. We might feel a little bit foolish. We get into that little bit of fear. Should I do it? Should I take a chance? Talking about that consciousness of that soul mind, I made some notes here. Now, there are two contracts on our planet, or we could call them two covenants, a covenant and a contract. It's the same thing. Covenant is more like a spiritual word. It's more of a religious word. But actually, it is a contract, and they're both soul contracts. That's why we have the free will to choose which contract we're going to follow. Now, both of the contracts are life force driven, which Ed Casey would talk about. He would say that it is a life force, an inside spiritual thing that is driving us. It's kind of a driven kind of an energy to complete things, to make things whole, in a holistic approach. It's a free will choice to choose which contract you will follow. Now, you may follow a contract you don't particularly understand, because sometimes we don't understand that we made a contract. And then we need to be empowered at this point in time on our history, on the timeline, and where we are in the total holistic consciousness, that we are being driven by a free will choice to choose. I mean, it happens every day. We have to say, oh, what should I do here? What should I do there? Am I on my path? All those questions come up. Now, every contract has a spiritual belief at its foundation. I didn't say a religious belief, I said a spiritual belief, because the soul is a spiritual driven life force, which is a belief system. And the systems are running in every person, whether or not they say, oh, yeah, well, I'm spiritual, offhand, or they might say, well, I've always been spiritual. I mean, if you come to that awareness, right, we're talking about awareness that we actually do have a contract. We relate to all living consciousness on our planet. That means that animals have a contract we have with them, definitely unconditional contract, which is a wonderful contract. Many of us have pets. I have a pet, and I kind of would figure most of my pets brought me something telepathically, emotionally. In fact, when I went to a doctor, they said, you know what, we're going to sign for you so you don't have to pay for keeping a dog or a cat in your apartments because you have a doctor's notice. And you can get a doctor's notice by saying that that pet actually is helping you with your emotions, and which a pet does. There are many things you can read about how our animals have added so much to our life and our emotional stability. Now, the contracts have a karmic lesson in them, and we need to process our emotional connections. And this is what we're doing. And karma is kind of like an emotional uneasiness, uncomfortableness. Oh, my gosh, I can't believe I'm still in karma. Well, karma is always created by an emotional connection to something that you don't quite understand when it first unfolds. We don't seek karma. We certainly don't seek to get into trouble, which is karma. But then again, sometimes we're led to kind of like experience things for our karma. There you go. So there are some kind of lessons. Now, we need to know who we are. That's our big thing there. The soul says, you don't know who you are. You don't know your gifts. You don't know that you're worthy. And you got to know those kind of things. So the soul is going to kind of work it for you on that level of that contract. All right. So you face your fears, and then you remember that you are a soul of unconditional love. So that's what the contract usually says at the beginning and the end. Now, just suppose that you don't become aware of your soul and your contract. Well, someone may remind you of it, and then all of a sudden something's triggered. I love that word. You get very emotional and very uncomfortable, and you say, whoa, I feel like this happened to me before, kind of like a deja vu clicking. Yeah, and that deja vu clicking is the brain kind of clicking into the contract. Oh, you didn't know deja vu means repeating things over and over again. It means deja vu. I am repeating this over and over again. And what are you repeating it over and over again for? For you. That's right. So contracts are helping you to be aware and to develop soul, and that's what the contract was all devised for. It's a design. It's a design of your free will. And then once it's one point that you have made all your choices and you have used that gift of free will, what happens? It kind of turns into the big design because you're turning everything into a wholeness design, okay? So when we become who we are by using our gifts, and one gift is our free will, we can overcome all the karma and the contracts and move into grace. Isn't that an interesting gift? Because, you see, grace is a gift, too. Now, you might be thinking, well, do I have to keep doing this? How many times do I have to incarnate? Well, basically, if we look at all major ancient religions and all religions, they say, well, you could kind of go to that resting place, if you consider that. If you have a consciousness and I'm going to heaven, Or maybe you have a consciousness of, oh, I really have been guilty, and I've not really liked my life. I have a lot of regrets. Well, you might choose that place called hell. So they're kind of like a consciousness of where you might want to go. But then there's the consciousness, actually that's available that you might want to come back, and that's the reincarnation thing. So you have the choice always to choose. Do I want to go to this place of heavenly and rest for a while, or maybe the in-between place that the Catholics talk about, the purgatory. Maybe I want to just go and have people pray for me. So there's all these type of things that are going on in the whole consciousness. Oh, yes. So we are just kind of like an instrument, a vessel. Yes, we represent that with the consciousness, and any person that you meet. Any person you meet, you can kind of zoom in and think, wow, this person is very spiritual or not spiritual. So you're kind of discerning. You're not judging, trying to figure out if this is the right path for you. See, we reflect on each other. We all are connected. So as we go along our little journey, the journey changes according to how we make our choices. Now, sometimes we feel forced into things, that we want to make a choice to help somebody. And sometimes we get involved in their path, and we carry those burdens by giving. Well, I have a lesson all about that today. And basically, it is going to help us so that we can understand our contracts. Now, if you wish to talk to me, 347-838-8452. I will find your contract, because whatever you say and your voice and your vocal, and you have said it's a problem, you've created it. You might say, oh, I don't create problems. Well, we do. We create our life. That's right. And problems are part of the life. So sometimes we do create karma. So that what reason would we create karma? We would create karma as a lesson to remember it all goes together. Thank you so much for joining my show. I'll be waiting for your calls. Give me a call right now. Thank you so much. I've had so many people appreciate me bringing this lesson. And you know what? You are